Time's up. Admiral.
Here it comes.
Chevron 1, coded.
For my ally is the Force. And the powerful ally it is. Life creates it. Makes it grow.
You failed, Your Highness. I am a Jedi, like my father before me.
Cry hammer! And let's set the dogs of war!
Chevron 2 is coded.
Conan, what is best in life? Crush your enemies, see them driven before you, to hear the lamentation of the women.
It's all in the reflexes.
Paul also said you're heavy into martial arts, Tai Chi and all that killer stuff.
I suppose we have to register you as a lethal weapon.
Chevron 3 encoded.
And somebody ought to belt you in the mouth. But I won't. I won't. The hell I will.
Chevron 4 encoded.
Do you expect me to talk? No, Mr. Bond, I expect you to die.
Chevron 5 encoded.
You take the blue pill. The story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to. You take the red pill. You stay in Wonderland. And I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
Chevron 6 encoded.
Not for while you can, monk boy.
Great Scott. Back off, man. I'm a scientist.
You shall not pass!
I thought I'd die fighting side by side with an elf.
What about side by side with a friend?
A day may come when the courage of men fails, when we forsake our friends and break all bonds of fellowship. But it is not this day.
Chevron 7 is locked.
Hail and howdy, everybody. Welcome back to Saturday Night Drive-In. And what the hell is going on with my hair? What is this? I don't know. I'm getting a haircut next week. It's maybe it's humidity. It's got the pomp and the. It's always a problem with me, isn't it? It's just this isn't right.
I don't think you've ever started a show as you intended to. Within two sentences, you get distracted.
I know. It's like I have ADD or something. I don't know. Welcome to Saturday Night Drive-In. We're back. It's 2025. We've got another. I guess we've got another 50 odd movies ahead of us this year to watch and talk about. Give or take a break here and there, depending on holidays and where they fall. And at least a couple of times, you find people are going to make us watch something we may or may not want to. But we'll get to that at the end of the show today. Jed, I haven't seen you since 2024. How are you?
I know. It's been so long. Years have passed. Worlds have changed. We've all grown up a little bit. And
no, we haven't. No, we haven't.
But it's great to be here talking about a classic Spielberg film. I consider this one of his late great films, one of the later great films that he was capable of. And man, he knocked it out of the park with this. I'm excited to talk about it.
I have some definite Spielberg comments on this one, positive ones, which is rare for me. All right, so and we are joined by Static, who was booked for this show months ago.
Dude, it was probably like 6 or 7 months ago.
It's like, you guys are gonna do Hook? I won't go on. I'm like, okay, you're booked in 8 months.
Hook is one of my all-time favorites. It was one of the ones that I got to go see in the theater as a kid. And I don't know anything about Spielberg, but he definitely did a great job with this one.
Yeah. Well, and like I said, definitely gonna talk about that. And I have so many good memories of Hook, not just of the movie, but of extra stuff, peripherals that go with it. I mean, I'm also talking about that right now before we get into it, because if I talk about those later, it'll sidetrack from talking about the movie. What I love about this is that it even though it didn't have a ton of merch with it, it had some good merch. It had the Pan sword. They actually released the Pan sword, which for me is this movie actually did, and I'll say this is, in my opinion, the best Peter Pan adaptation ever, because you felt Neverland, but it added stuff to the lore. There's no Pan sword in their original lore, but they added the Pan sword, this golden blade thing with a coconut for a guard. It's just cool.
It was really cool. Yeah.
I love the pan sword. I never had one though. I played with one once, but I never had it. So that was cool. There were some action figures here and there. It was just a quick line. But for me, the best peripherals were, of course, the soundtrack.
Yep.
And we'll talk about that at the individual. But the John Williams soundtrack is glorious, which it was for me. It actually kind of saved me from a very uncomfortable road trip once. One summer, every summer, we would go down to Florida to my dad's hay and cattle, my stepdad's hay and cattle ranch. But instead of usually me and my mom flew and he drove, but my mom flew down a week ahead to spend time with her sister, one of her sisters. So I had to take the drive with my stepdad from Jersey to Florida. And listen, we had an okay relationship, but he's not exactly a talker in the car, you know? So for 2 days, I just listened to his stuff on a CD player. And mostly I listened to Jurassic Park soundtrack, which is another John Williams great, and Hook. And I listened to them so much so that by the time we got there, I had to go rent both movies because this is before I had a VHS collection, really. So it was the Hook soundtrack got me through a very otherwise boring and uncomfortable road trip. And then even better, this is still during the time of the SNES and the Sega CD had just come out. So right after it came out, they released Static. I know you might have gotten this because, Jed, you're a child.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Did you ever play the Hook video game?
I didn't even know there was one.
Oh, it was great. So they came out with 3 versions. You had the SNES, the Genesis, and the Sega CD. Now, the first one I rented on the SNES, and I was kind of like, I guess it's okay because it was just text on the screen, had the BGM MIDI music of John Williams' score. So I wasn't really into it. But then a few weeks later that month, I saw, after I'd gotten my Sega CD for Christmas, there it was for the Sega CD. And I thought, oh, you know what? It's on Sega CD. I'm going to give it a chance. A completely different experience. Fully voice acted for the sprites.
Okay.
And the complete John Williams soundtrack woven into the game.
With like Robin Williams and Dustin Hoffman?
No, it wasn't Robin Williams.
I was going to say, damn.
No, it wasn't that. But it was voice acting. So it was a whole nother experience, and it played the same as the Super Nintendo one, but with voice acting and the real John Williams score, it blew you away. And also it had an intro movie where you saw the Jolly Roger flying in to kidnap the kids. And that was just cool. So it was blown away. And the game was fantastic because you start right after Peter gets his memories back, and you basically do a practice level where you learn how to fly, you get the pan sword from Rufio, but then you basically go all around Neverland before you get to the Jolly Roger Pirate Town, and it draws you in. And one thing I always wanted from the movie was to see more of Neverland in that movie, and the game did it. So it's a fantastic game. If anybody has retro access to it, I fully recommend getting your hands on either the original or a rip of the Sega CD version of Hook. Fantastic. I mean, it's like a 5-6 hour play. You're going to be done with it in a day. But it's a joy to play. It was joyous. Anyway, so let's get to the actual movie. I just wanted to share that. You guys have any memories tangentially besides the movie you want to share? I don't want to leave you out. You got anything? Or am I the only one who's a super nerd like that?
So as I said earlier, like I got to go see it in the theaters. I had to like do some crap at school. I don't remember what it was. I think I had to read like a bunch of books or something, and then I'd get to go see a movie. And so that's like one of the things I remember about it. Otherwise, everything's just more about the movie itself.
And this movie, I remember when I went to see it, it was one of those instances where I understood it was Peter Pan related, but I had no idea what I was walking into. I mean, Jed, when you first saw this, did you have any idea what you were signing up to see?
Oh, I had no idea. I just turned it on to my grandma's for some reason. I don't remember why. I was like 10 or 12, younger, and the VHS cover just looked interesting. So popped it in. Had no idea. I didn't even realize it was Peter Pan from the cover. I'd never read the book or seen the animated film at that point, I believe. So I really went into this originally with no knowledge or previous expectations and just had a lot of fun. I wasn't even familiar with Robin Williams yet at that point. I never really watched a ton of his films. So this was the gateway to him as an actor for me. and made me ask about other ones. The next one I watched because I asked my grandma, "Hey, who's this guy?" was a Flubber. I watched Flubber. Definitely a different experience.
Yeah, but it's the range of Robin Williams, and
Yeah,
I guess that's a place to start. Could they have picked a better person to be Peter Banning Peter Pan, to go from serious to childlike?
I can't think of one.
How could you even pick that? Like, I mean, Robin
If
Williams.
it came out today, it'd be someone like Pete Davidson or something really dumb.
Gross.
Yeah, I mean, throughout the
Or
entire.
Tom Holland.
I was trying not to bring that up. I thought it, but I wasn't going to say it. I didn't want to even. I didn't even want to put that out into existence. All right. Listen. I'll give Tom Holland credit. He said his recent statement. As soon as I have kids, I'm done. Good for Tom Holland.
You'll never see me.
Good for Tom Holland.
I mean, he's made enough money that he can, take care of them throughout their whole lives on residuals and royalties.
Oh,
He'll be fine.
He's going to get royalties for Spider-Man forever. He'll get royalties for that forever. I mean, he's been in enough big budget films that if he is smart with his money, he doesn't have to do anything more. So he's fine.
And Zendaya will just work and provide for him and the kids. He'll be a stay-at-home dad.
Him saying that almost has me thinking like she's got to be the exact opposite. So that might not be long for the.
Listen, if they're happy together, good for them. But dude, go find a real woman.
Yeah, their goals in life are clearly not aligned. I don't foresee them lasting.
Because he doesn't. He said he wants to get the hell out of Hollywood and everything. He wants to go live out in the middle of nowhere type shit.
Play Final Fantasy 14.
She wants to get bigger into it, get more involved.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, for him saying that, much respect. Even though we make a joke about him, Tom Holland's will be cast and everything, for saying something like that, which kind of rolls into part of the theme of today's movie, saying that's a statement of a good dad.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And with this movie, you don't know it back then. This is the 90s. The term good dad movie doesn't exist because it isn't even something we needed to ever think about. But in today's cinema culture, we have to think about that when it happens, and you realize that this is a fascinating story of a bad dad who becomes a good dad because he always wanted to be a dad. And at the same time, I realized this doing this last rewatch because of the way my brain is now chemically balanced for this bullshit we deal with every day in and day out. It's fascinating. They insert a story of Hook pretending to be a good dad, but he's bad dad. I find that fascinating now to realize that. It's great.
Yeah, he just gaslights the hell out of the kids, which is hilarious.
And, let me say that. I am to this day, I am surprised. And I'm surprised that it worked. Not because Dustin Hoffman is not a fantastic actor, but that he just managed to create Hook. A Hook that to me has not been topped by anybody.
Oh, absolutely not. He disappears into the role. Like, if I weren't the wiser, if I didn't know Dustin Hoffman was in the role, I could not have guessed it. He's just so great in it.
When I was watching it this week, I was trying so hard to see Dustin Hoffman, and you just can't.
Yeah,
you just can't see the dude.
They add makeup, effects, the wig, and everything about it is great, and it's so engaging. This is one of the things I love about this movie. I'm going to come back to it over and over again, is the fact that they managed to world build Neverland, but we only go to two places the entire time.
I know.
But
I was thinking the same thing too. I was like, it would be really, because Neverland feels alive. I was like, this is like a good Batman movie where Gotham's the character. Like Neverland could have been so much more explored.
But I do wish we would have seen Tiger Lily and her people. Yes. They mentioned them a lot, but we never see them.
I'm actually the opposite. I'm glad they don't include the Indians, because then it would have been too crowded. To me, it's enough that you've got Pirates versus Lost Boys, Hook versus Pan. A third party would pull away, because the fact that you have a full-on war at the end, the Battle of the Jolly Roger, and add in the Indians, and then it gets messy. Because one of the things that I love about the final battle is the Lost Boys fight like kids. They are using children tactics. They're using all these crazy gadgets. They're doing and they're doing, and we make these comments all the time. Usually it's women versus men, but in this case, kids versus adults. They're doing things that allow them to fight the pirates in equilibrium. They're blinding them. They're throwing traps out there. They're making the
it's not like the kids are overpowering them, like sucker punching the giant pirates and winning hand to hand like that. They're using their smarts.
Thud ball. I mean, it's great, and because Peter had a plan. And I love it that it was an entire plan of lure Hook into the town square and surrounded by clocks and freak him out. I mean, it's brilliant. I love
Effective.
I mean, although that does lead to my one criticism of the movie, but we'll get to that later. So,
the only reason I would have wanted the Indians to be in it because I would have made a Boston Tea Party joke. I wouldn't have been able to resist. I would have had them like sneak aboard the Jolly Roger at night, steal all the rum and dump it in the ocean, and then the morale of the pirates is just so bad the next day. It would have been awful, but I couldn't have resisted if I were Steven.
No. I know what you really do. You just want to call Tiger Lily a squaw. That's all you want to do.
Yes, that's the truth. I'm just glad you said it, so I didn't have to. I was just gonna bring him up in every conversation until it came naturally.
Anyway, so let's just set the stage, and then I'll send us off on another direction. So this is essentially Peter Pan grew up, which frankly I think is a brilliant story to tell. What if Peter Pan grew up? And what if he forgets about Neverland, which is the thing. Neverland makes you forget, but then he forgets about Neverland. I thought that's a fascinating dichotomy of that. And he grows up to be a selfish, work-driven man who cares more about his business deals than his family. And he's a man of broken promises. We don't know if he's a full-on alcoholic, but he likes to drink to escape. And he's not a good dad. He's just not a good dad.
Disengaged dad.
Yeah, I guess the better way to. He's not a mean dad. He's disengaged dad because the one moment he shouts, honestly, when he shouts at everybody, he's kind of
in the right. Absolutely. Every time he loses his temper, like his son playing with the baseball on the plane, he loses his temper a little bit then. Yeah. I would be right there with him. If I was on that plane, I'd be like, take that ball away from that child.
He was being extremely disrespectful because no one wants to hear that. No one else on the plane wants to hear that.
Yeah, 100%. And then, the wife not stopping the kids from playing all over him when he was taking that important business call. What he said was $5 billion were on the line.
Yeah.
I'm okay with him taking that call. That seems kind of important. And the wife, I don't think, Mora. I don't like her character. She's one of the weakest parts for me because
she's nothing.
She makes that decision. She's yelling at him, throws the phone out the window. And I can 100% see if that deal falls through and he loses his job, she's going to be bitching at him for not making enough money.
You wouldn't say they did their due diligence to kind of build up to that moment where when he takes the phone call in the play and then they're starting to build the narrative of how he's an absent father, essentially, but even though he's in the house, and then he completely misses the baseball game. And then now I would agree with the kids being all loud in the room while he's on the phone call, but they were like all entered that room at the same time. And I was thinking, why doesn't he just leave the room anyways?
Yeah, it's not. You're right about that.
Either way.
There's a little fault to everybody there, but his explosion.
It's not a very well designed scene. I think.
Yeah,
the framing of it is confusing.
I think what they wanted is what Spielberg did. He wanted that shot of Jack's shadow getting larger and larger. He wanted a lot of different angles going on at once. And it makes Static. I agree with what Static just said. He should have left the room, but there's fault to go around. And I stick by my point, though. He was right to explode like that. But then Moore shouldn't have thrown the phone out the window.
And then I have another question. How did he get a cell phone working overseas in 1991?
I don't know.
I don't know how.
He's a powerful lawyer. Well, there is actually there is a problem I have with the cell phone. And this is one of my few criticisms. Somebody didn't pay attention. When Maura throws the phone out the window, it's open. At the end of the movie, and it's buried, it's closed.
The dog might have closed it.
The dog. Oh, wait, you're right. When the dog buries it, it is open.
It's still talking when Nana is burying it.
Yeah, that's right.
I noticed this shit. I've noticed it all my life, and it's one of the small things that bugs me.
Did you have a phone like that back in the day, or at least familiarity with them?
I had one.
You had one like that?
I had a gray phone that looked like that. My mom decided that
battery brick.
Well, it wasn't the brick. It was that big. It was that one. It was like that, but gray, had the pull-out thing. Yeah, I had one of those in high school because my mom said, "I want you to have a phone."
See, I had the pull-out antenna. Well, okay, by the time we're the same age. By the time we were in high school, though, they weren't the giant like things like the first renditions of the cell phone.
No, not the one my stepdad had in the car. Yeah,
the cell phones that we had in high school would fit in your pocket.
Yeah, it fit in my pocket. Like
that phone that Robin Williams has does not fit in your pocket.
No, that was a regular one.
He just kept it on his belt.
Go back and watch the
quick draw is
weird. Go back and watch the quick draw. You'll see how big those things really are.
Well, I had one like that. I mean, I had a gray one. It looked kind of like that. Had the flip open bottom and the pull out plastic antenna. Because my mom said, "I want you to have this while you're out and about in high school at night." So it's like fine. I never used it for anything but to call home and say, "Yeah, I'm not going to be home until later."
And play Snake.
Yeah, I've never seen one of these phones. My first phone that was actually mine, like there were shared phones that weren't this advanced, but my first phone was a smartphone. So this was before my time.
What are you, 12?
He's a child. He's a child. My second phone was one of those skinny Nokia ones that were just those little blue things that were like this big. And one time I was walking down Lexington Avenue, New York, and I thought I put it in my jacket, but I didn't. And I missed it. I dropped it and I didn't know. And somebody just took it up and called my stepdad on it.
I'm so glad we're almost back to the day where cell phones are unremarkable.
Yeah. Listen, I've said before, said again, my cell phone does 3 things for me. I check the weather, I use it as a phone, and occasionally I'll use it for a calculator or an alarm clock. It's my alarm clock. So anyway, back to the movie. All right, so they're traveling to England. It's Christmas time. It's not a central focus of it. It just happens to be Christmas.
Right.
They're visiting because Wendy is getting honored for her work with orphan children. Because apparently, as the lore in this goes, once she was too old to return to Neverland, she started, and her family was grown up, she started to bring in lost boys and started with Toodles. And then she turned into the whole thing, finding homes for orphans, and she's been honored. Yeah.
That was something that I would have liked some more information on, is like, why was Toodles the first one? You would have thought Peter was.
Well, maybe because my guess is, it's total headcanon. I have no explanation. My guess is that Toodles probably expressed a desire to leave Neverland. And
I mean, that makes sense. I mean, why else would he have left?
But the whole movie, it's like he wants to be back there.
Well, he's an old man. Yeah. There's nothing else for him in reality. But I think that's a great example of Wendy's new profession of carrying on the story, because that absolutely fits in line with the book and the original animated film, that she cares about these lost boys. She becomes almost a pseudo mother figure for them when she's in Neverland, that it feels so natural that it doesn't feel like, oh, we're going to do our own thing. The source material doesn't matter. It clearly shows that Spielberg and whoever else was involved in the writing room, they read the book, they were familiar with it, and they wanted to make logical and emotional continuations for all the characters. And that's a prime example of it. I can't see a better job for Wendy having.
Yeah, and Dame Maggie Smith as Wendy, aged up at that point because she's not actually that old.
Right.
Yeah, she's only 56, I think, when this movie came out.
They aged her up, and we get a shot of her normally in the flashback. But Maggie Smith, fantastic for when she's in it. Get Gwyneth Paltrow for 5 seconds as Wendy, as young Wendy. I think that might have been Gwyneth Paltrow's first appearance in a movie.
I believe it was.
Yeah. Anyway, and they're traveling there. She's going to be honored, and as one of her orphans, because there are obviously others in the room. Because that's a great moment when they're at the dinner, and Peter's giving the speech. And he said, I don't have the words. And they all start getting up. And he said, I don't know what we have in common. He says, wait a minute. We're all orphans. And that's something that's the first time in this movie. There are moments in this movie that are deeply touching and just hit you right in the feels. And you just go, man. And it takes the delivery of somebody like Robin Williams and a perennial actress like Maggie Smith to emote in that moment and to deliver and make that scene, because it's the cast in all these moments that manages to bring these scenes home, including some of the kids Some of the Lost Boys, because I've got 3 favorite scenes in this movie, and they might not be what you think they are. I'll give the first one now. I'll give it when we get there, because we're sort of going on here. So as we know, before going to the party, there's the blow up, and Jack he's pissed, and he's primed for manipulation by Hook and all that kind of stuff. And while they're at the dinner, Hook kidnaps the kids. They get home, and immediately you get there, and that track kicks in. And suddenly you realize, okay, the adventure, we're about 20 minutes in at this point, and we're kind of just coasting along. But then suddenly John Williams brings the music, and the movie is off and running. And you get the build up. And I'm asking a question. I don't know. Maybe somebody in the chat will know this. When they're trying to figure out what's going on, and Wendy's going to tell Peter who he is that a legitimate edition of Peter Pan that she's holding, or is that one made for the movie? Because he's holding the Pan sword in the illustration, so I kind of think it's one made for the movie.
Yeah, I think it was one made for the movie.
Yeah, he has the Pan sword.
Yeah, but it's really nice illustration. I really like that.
Yeah.
I wish I'd like if there is a volume of that out there, I would actually like that, because that's a good looking volume. I like that. But she tells him, and when she turns the page to him, you hear that Peter Pan theme that they're going to play, the dun, 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 combined with the Hook theme, and it's right there. And for a second, when he's going to look at it, he puts his hands. He does the pose, and then he sees. He goes, "Oh, what am I doing here?" And Peter's in there, and then it's off, because then he's drinking alone in the room, and then Tink arrives. And Julia Roberts does a good job. I think Julia Roberts did okay.
What about that moment before she tells him? She was telling about how she was expecting him to interrupt her wedding, and it gets a little awkward there. It's like, is she going to kiss him? What's happening here? This is weird.
She got brought back a little bit. She cast herself. Look at she's thinking the kid. So then Julia Roberts, Tinkerbell arrives, and I think Julia Roberts is okay. She's fine. Although honestly, with the exception of like one scene, I don't think they're ever actually filming at the same time in this movie, with the exception of the she gets humongous
when she's big. Yeah, it's unlikely.
One of the worst decisions they made was giving her the frigging pixie cut just because she was a damn pixie.
And you know what cut that's from? That's the hairstyle she was using at the end of Steel Magnolias. Oh, so she had done that hairstyle before, and I hate it. It's so much better when she's in all dressed up and it's all teased out. That looks good. But yeah, I call it the Steel Magnolia cut, because her character in Steel Magnolias gets her haircut at the very end, and Sally Field's character, her mom, freaks out that she cut her hair like that because it looks terrible. So they gave her that haircut again for them. Just like, why? Yeah. Especially shows you can make it look good later on. Anyway, let me ask you this: I like it the fact that Tink actually speaks and isn't going ding, 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 speaking fairy. I think that's a good decision. So that
give her some personality.
Yeah,
I think her not speaking works for the animated film, but in live action, it was definitely the better choice to have her speak. And I was a little bit unclear in her first appearance, because it's clearly she's making fun of Peter or messing around with Peter when she pretends to die.
Yeah,
she's like, "Hey, louder." That's clearly she's messing around with him. But then she does say, "Clap and it'll bring me back," and it seems like that's all just a joke on him. But then later on, Hook says, "No matter clapping will save you." Is it part of the lore?
It's part of the lore.
Yeah. Clapping is part of the lore.
Yeah,
but it just feels weird and inconsistent that, like, at one point it's a joke.
It's a joke for her because she's not really hurt there, but clapping is bringing a pixie back to life during life, because in the lore, Tink drinks the poison for him, and he has to clap to bring her back.
I haven't done any other Peter Pan stuff in well over a decade, so I don't remember that.
I used to love it. I mean, while this was running, there was a Fox Kids show, The Adventures of Peter Pan, which is actually pretty good. And
I don't remember that.
It was a Fox Kids show. Ran for like just one season. It was good. It had some problems with it, but it was fun because it was just basically Peter, the core Lost Boys, Wendy, Michael, and John having adventures in Neverland.
Well, Michael and John are Wendy's brothers.
Yeah. And the Tinkerbell in that one was like the Tinkerbell in this one. She could speak. She had a full get up. She had an attitude, and she was hyper jealous of Wendy. And it made for a lot of fun. So I like that arrival of Tinkerbell when she arrives and she tries to bring him back, and he doesn't want to do it. He's resistant. Yet you can tell Peter's still in there because we see the glimpses here and there. It's like, oh, I'm going to clap. I'm glad you're alive. Then we get to my favorite scene. One of my favorite scenes first of all, the John Williams music in full effect now, and she can't make him fly, but she can carry him because she's strong. Are you related to Mighty Mouse? Yeah. She carries him, and you get the great sequence of her taking him to Neverland. And you get there, and the introduction of Hook, I love that moment where after she beats up the pirates and dresses him up like the peg leg guy, the dead leg guy, and then dun 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 dun. I love that theme. I've been whistling it for days. It is stuck in my head right now. And you watch Smee taking the hook. Bob Hoskins, R.I.P. Bob Hoskins, brilliant performance.
Killed it.
And the entire town is just following the hook, chanting Hook. And that theme, the crescendo just builds and builds as he gets to the Jolly Roger. And I love it that Tink is riding in the hat. And for a second, you can tell she is back. It's 100 years ago. And she's on an adventure with Peter again. And you can see it in Julia Roberts' face. The Tink's like, yes, we're on an adventure again. All right. As she's riding the hat. And then when Smitty just takes the hook in, and then you see the sparks as Hook puts the hook on. See, that was from the trailer back then. They had that moment in the trailer, and it sparked your imagination. And I just love that entire scene. And it just, once again, we get only 2 places this entire Neverland, but Pirate Town, Jolly Roger Town, it's lived in. They have whores. They have whores.
That was just another perfect example of how well they did Neverland. Yeah. When he wakes up underneath that tent blanket thing, then whatever the hell's going on there, and like you feel like you're there when they show the whole area. Like I just love that part. I love that. Like we were saying earlier, the Netherland stuff is just so good.
Yeah, and they show. I love it. I love the aerial shot of Neverland. When you see Neverland and you see the compass in the sea.
Yep. Yeah.
I love that. It just looks so good. All right. So before we go farther, do you guys have another favorite scene around this point? You guys have a favorite scene you want to go to? Because I don't want to deny you and kvelling about it.
No, that's the best part so far is arriving to Neverland. Easily.
I do have one that takes place a little bit before this, and it's more a single joke. It's the one time in the film that I burst out laughing pretty much every time I see it. It's when they first get to Maggie Smith's house, and Dougal opens the door and just it's snowing and slams the door for no reason.
We're in England, the land of good manners.
I just lose it there when he screams it and shuts the door, and then a moment later he's like, "I've lost my marbles." Just everything with him at the beginning is gold.
The guy who played Toodles nailed that too.
Mm-hmm.
But Toodles is a perfect blend through most of the movie until the very end when it flips on it of the lostness that he obviously had something when he came to Earth, but he now misses what he had and gave up. No more happy thoughts. Lost. And it's that sadness. And when we get to the end, there is even though this is a happy ending, there's a mix of bittersweet in this that I'm going to touch on when we get to the end of it. All right, the first confrontation on the Jolly Roger when Smitty announces Hook, and then the door opens, and then it's the full dun 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 dun, and you see Dustin Hoffman making the Hook time with the music as they're going, Hook. I love that. See how the men adore you, Captain? The sniveling swine, how I abhor them. I love it. He just disdain for all. He is evil. No forgiveness. evil, bad man. There is no redeeming factors for Captain Hook. None.
But at the same time, he's very interesting and nuanced,
yeah.
especially when the behind the doors conversations with Smee, like when he's got the pistol to his head. That whole sequence is fantastic. And I think, just like you're saying, this is a great example of an unredeemable villain that we still want to learn more about and feel for him and understand his emotions if we don't obviously agree with it. There's ways to make a character nuanced and likable without making them a misunderstood villain who's redeemable or anything like that. There's complexity in pure evil as much as any other moral alignment.
There's charisma. It's the charisma that Dustin Hoffman just exudes as Hook. And his men love him. And also he is the most dangerous man there. And that is what I always respect about a top villain. Nobody there can beat him. He is the toughest guy there. Even though he's the old man, he is the strongest guy there. And only Peter could beat him. Poor Rufio. R.I.P. Rufio.
I
would say apparently Rufio couldn't beat him.
Yeah, he could not. So it's just you exude it, and he gives the speech. And we'd already seen it. And here is one of my few criticisms of the movie that I think was a narrative mistake. And I want you guys to see where you are in this. I think it was a mistake to have the crocodile be dead. Even though I know it plays out in the final moment, the crocodile should have been alive, and they still could have played it out with the crocodile alive. I think the crocodile should have been alive. I think that was a mistake, a story mistake. You guys agree or disagree?
I agree. I think there's a lot of narrative meat to the crocodile's death, if nothing else, that we could have gleaned from. Even if it was something like he finally vanquished it right before the movie, and that gave him the courage to go after Peter, or at least have its death play into it, because it was such an important part of the book and the animated film that just being like dismissive, oh yeah, it's dead and now it's a clock tower, just it feels unsatisfying, unfulfilling. So even if it was dead during the film, weaving it into the plot in some way, even if it's just character motivation, would have serviced it better. But you could still have him killed by the crocodile at the end, because that is poetic, even if it doesn't make any sense when like the body disappears.
Yeah.
But I think you're absolutely correct that the clock tower, it kind of looks cheesy, honestly, if I'm telling the truth here. I don't like how it fits in with the rest of Pirate Town.
Because the croc is huge there. You realize that they made it huge. And now maybe, Static, do you think this was a limitation of the special effects technology at the time, that they didn't want to spend money on trying to do early CGI of the 90s to try and make it something, and just said, maybe they tried to do it and they said, you know what, we can't do it. We still want the croc to get him.
I think
only a couple of years.
If you look at the flow of how this story goes, it doesn't stop at all.
No,
they didn't have time to fit anything else in. I watched it again earlier today, and I was thinking the same thing that you just said. I was like, you know what, it would have been nice to actually have the ticking with the alligator. But I just look at the story as a whole, and I'm like, I don't see where they fit anything in. I would have loved to have seen some Tiger Lily stuff. Where does that go? Like, and it's the perfect length of a movie. Like, you don't want to make this too long.
And that's we can say Spielberg did a great job. He told the story in a tight, linear, good fashion. There's no downtime, even though the movie starts a little slow because it's the real world. Once you're in Neverland, you're off. The 3 days, every part of those 3 days is important. There's no slagging. There's no downtime. Every conversation, even Maggie singing her song, is important. Because it's part of the earworm in Jack's mind of run home, Jack, run home.
It's the anchor for Jack.
Yeah. But I still wish the crocodile had been alive. My whole life, I've always thought that ever since I saw it. Because I would have wanted to see the crocodile, especially when I see how big he is in this movie.
I don't think the technology was that far out of reach, because he only did Jurassic Park a couple of years later. Imagine the dinosaurs were harder than a crocodile.
I want to let me see what the budget is on Hook real quick.
Jurassic Park was 4 years later, I want to say.
Okay. Hook's budget was only $70 million. It was a $70 million
That's
Jurassic
a lot.
Park was 2 years later.
Oh, was it only 2 years? Okay.
So it's next couple films.
Yeah. So this was a $70 million budget. Now back then, that's a lot.
I say back then that sounds like way more than normal.
Yeah. And let me see if I can. Let me see.
And there's not. I mean, I guess there is some CG with like a lot of the Netherlands.
There's
shots,
well, everything with Tinkerbell outside of the close-ups is CG.
Yeah.
And the flying, that's green screen stuff.
That's compositing.
Yeah.
It made money, but from what I heard, it wasn't that well deemed a successful film at the time. From what I've heard,
$300 million.
That's definitely profit.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, listen,
not a ton, but
I mean, at the time, I think at the time it wasn't received, but it definitely is a cult classic now. It's beloved. 100%. It's beloved by just about everybody. Nobody has a bad thing really to say about this movie.
I've introduced the movie to so many people as adults that they never saw it.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's there's still room for it to grow.
Wow, Julia Roberts was only 23.
Really? Wow.
That's what this says. I thought she was closer to 30.
She was
not quite.
Her career was just taking off at that point because she had been in a lot of smaller
She had
roles.
just done Pretty Woman.
Apparently, there's a story about that with Steven Spielberg and her. Apparently, she got the nickname Tinker Hell for her awful behavior on set. I've never heard that, but I mean, it doesn't surprise me.
Well, considering she probably spent most of the movie not with anybody else because she has literally no scenes. Because think about it, every scene she's in except for the humongous scene, she filmed that somebody else. Like when she's making the
alone on a set.
Yeah, when she's making the terms with Hook, and she puts the dagger in your dirty old war. She's not really there. That's somebody else with a green thing over their glove moving Dustin Hoffman's nose.
Yep.
Can you imagine that job just poking his nose?
Well, and then I love how like a second later he like has to like clear that from his nose. He's like got to like touch it himself to like reset himself.
I love it. It's so great. So I'm not surprised because she probably was miserable because she had to be by herself, with the exception of one scene with Robin Williams. She was by herself the whole time. So she was probably a bitch on wheels because she didn't get to actually be in the movie with everybody. Well, everybody else, they're all having a final time, swinging around, throwing shit, dueling. They're having a great old time.
Robin Williams is hanging out with a bunch of kids, which is something I think he enjoyed to do, and not because of normal Hollywood bullshit.
Yeah, because he was a good soul.
He's actually a decent person.
Yeah. And so I'm not surprised by that. But so during that whole first engagement on the Jolly Roger, when Smeany Menson's here's the scar from the Tiger Lily incident, where you cut him up and Hook's looking at him, is that really you? My great and worthy opponent? You can't be this spineless codfish I see before me. I mean, it's so good right there that he is so disappointed. And then because he won't say, and then Peter can't save the kids, and the emotion reach out. Jack's like, just do it. Don't give up on us. But Peter is so trapped by his, is it agoraphobia? Is that fear of heights?
No, that's fear of large spaces.
Okay.
Agoraphobia is fear of going outside.
Okay. Well, fear of heights. We'll just say fear of heights.
Yeah.
Fear of heights.
Yeah. He's just so gripped on it, which of course is the running gag at this point. Peter Pan's afraid of heights, and that's it's darkly funny at that point, but it's sad right there.
Mm-hmm.
And then they accidentally knock him into the water, and then he makes out with mermaids.
Yeah, I had that conversation with more a year ago.
Yeah.
Hey, listen. The mermaids always had a thing for Peter. Listen. All the females of Neverland have the thing for Peter, and I might as well throw this right now. Considering what we got in this movie, I hate to say it. Is Tinkerbell a groomer?
Yes. Huh? Yes.
Is Tinkerbell a groomer?
Yes.
I hate to say it, but I can't help but kind of see it in my current.
All right, you got to go in the boo box for saying that.
Dude, when I was a kid, that boo box thing scared the crap out of me.
And we all know this now. I only learned it a couple of years ago That's Glenn Close.
Yep.
Under all that makeup.
Doesn't sound like her at all.
It's Glenn Close. She wanted a cameo in it, and they put her in the makeup. The dude in the boo box is actually Glenn Close. Now I see it.
I didn't know that. I did not know that.
We missed mentioning the Phil Collins cameo.
Yeah. I thought about it, but I moved past it too quickly.
Who does he play?
He's the detective.
The inspector.
Really?
Yeah.
He's like, I've forgotten how to fly. Yes, don't we all?
Yeah.
This might be painful, but who's Phil Collins?
Oh no.
I really don't know. It's not a bit.
Studio.
Genesis. He's a
musician.
Yeah.
Oh, the band Genesis. Okay,
Yeah.
I have heard of the band Genesis.
Yeah.
He was the drummer and a singer in Genesis.
And he's a dick. And there's a gag. He's an asshole from South Park. They did a whole thing during the whole Brown Note episode.
Yes.
Yeah, that was Glenn Close, and I didn't know that for a lot of years. But now you can see. Now that I know, I can see it underneath the makeup. I can see her there. Oh, that is Glenn Close. Okay. Yeah, they made her look like a dude. Boo, boo, and that whole scene, the evil of Captain Hook, asserted, great, love it. And then we're coming up on my next favorite scene in the movie, when Peter arrives at the Lost Boys tree, the tree house. And my favorite part is at the end of it. I mean, the whole thing where they find him and they torture him by chasing him around and kill the lawyer. I'm not that kind of lawyer. They chase around, but that is fun. That's pure fun. Mm-hmm. And that's the Lost Boys messing around. And of course, then we get introduced to Rufio. Listen, that's been a joke for decades with my generation. You can't help it. And no matter what that dude does, even though he's the voice of Zuko, we all call him Rufio. He's Rufio. So the next favorite part, and now that this is again, I give Spielberg a ton of credit for this. I give Robin Williams a ton of credit, and I give the kid playing Pockets, Lost Boy Pockets, a ton of credit.
Yeah. There you are.
There you are, Peter. There you are, Peter. That moment where that lilting flute is playing and Rufio is trying to turn everybody against him, and Tink has failed to convince anybody except Pockets. And Pockets just pulls him down and starts moving his face around to look for young Peter's features. And when he gets him like this, he goes, "Oh, there you are, Peter." Man, that just hits me every damn time, because the joy on Pocket's face and the amazement on everybody else. And here's good direction by Steven Spielberg. A shot of Rufio. Just he tries to stop it because he realizes that the power he's collected is now falling apart because he's jealous. He has Peter Pan envy. Because I don't think Rufio was there when Peter was there. He's the Lost Boy that came after Peter that Tinkerbell probably found. Because there's no connection between him and Peter, as with some of the other Lost Boys who say, "Why'd you grow up? You promised you wouldn't grow old, and there you are. Welcome back to Neverland, Panda Man." But that song, that flute, and it's just, and them just surrounding him, and you realize, wow, it's one of those perfect families without blood moments, that this is his original family. And look at how much they missed him. And they're so happy to have him. And then the back and forth of getting everybody on their side, on Tinkerbell and Peter's side, to help him save the kids. That's great. And this is Spielberg. This is honestly, you could criticize this. This is honestly, I would say for me, the best directed Spielberg movie for me. Because Jed, I've said this to Jed a bunch of times in the past, a lot of times we've done those Spielberg movies, there's always a fatal flaw where Spielberg takes something too far for the sake of art or shock value. Mm-hmm. Spielberg isn't trying to be an artist in this. He's just directing a good movie, and he's relying on his cast and the scenes to play out. And he's using traditional camera stuff. He's not trying to do anything stupid or artistic, and he's not pushing the boundaries to do something with some sort of shock value, this, that. And because of that, because he doesn't do that, I feel he's actually putting all his skills as a director to perfect use in this movie. And that scene is one of them for me, where you get the proper shots and the angles and the perfect cuts back and forth to get the right reactions from everybody to make the scene an entire realized scene.
And the kids do a great
Yeah.
job. Like, kid actors usually screw everything up like 99% of the time. And they did an excellent job at picking out the ones that they've got. Particularly,
we didn't see a ton of them going forward. They were really good, like you're saying.
Yeah,
Should have had careers.
we'll talk about them more as we go through more of the scenes, but a little more Thud wouldn't have hurt.
And Thud, they made Thud a massively important character in this because Thud is there to help guide Peter to his happy thoughts. And it's you're right about these kids. I think there's a combination of that. I think that whoever they had on set to help manage the kids did a good job. I think that the performance of the kids has a lot to do with Robin Williams because he probably had a very good rapport with them, and he was able to I'm saying this not to say that he was being a child, but to get on their level and get in a mindset that made them feel comfortable with him in the scenes and have fun. And that is where Spielberg, with his actual talent as director, was able to draw that fully out of everybody. And that's why it works. And this is my second favorite scene because it truly shows a masterfully directed movie because it just pulled everything together. And then, of course, the score. I keep coming back to it. The John Williams score. It's beautiful. It's fantastical, but I'll talk more about it at the end.
I do want to add my favorite part of this scene is the fact that when the kid's messing with Robin's face and whatnot, it's when he makes him smile that it's the moment he recognizes him because Peter was such a joyful character that his smile was half of pretty much all the time that they saw Peter. He had this massive grin on his face, and Peter Banning is never smiling. We never really see a whole lot of him smiling up to that point because he's either busy, consumed with work, or afraid for his children. We don't see him smiling a whole lot. And that's like the big moment where we as an audience can really see the first glimpse of Peter as well, even if it's forced, put upon him. But that absolute joy that Peter's known for is the only way that they're able to recognize him. And I find that subtle and very sweet.
And that's perfect compliment to what I just said. I think that is performance, direction, and just enjoying the scene. Everybody involved wanted this to work at that moment. That's the moment where everything changes, where now Peter's on the road to not being Peter Banning, getting back to being Peter Pan. And we get what you mentioned before. We go to the Hook commits Minecraft scene. That's just brilliant. That's fun. That's two great actors, Dustin Hoffman and Bob Hoskins, just playing off each other in a great scene where Hook is depressed. He's depressed. He's angry at himself, and Smee is eating food. Eating the leg of meat. He's like, he's just tongue on. And now it's over. I've had enough. It's done. What's this? Oh, not again. Because obviously this has happened before. Oh, not this again. And then Smitty, don't you try to stop me. Smitty, don't you try to stop me. Smitty, you try to stop me. Smitty, you try to stop me. I'm committing Minecraft. You stop me. It's like
the toxic relationship that is.
Yes, and they do it perfectly. I mean, and where there's a lot of disgusting stuff. I ever since I was a kid, I'm disgusted by the moment where after lightning strikes his brain, he has an apostrophe. He has Hook in his chair and he's kind of getting ready for bed. He sticks his fingers in his ears and uses the earwax to curl them up. That disgusts me to this day. I hate that. Oh, disgusting. But it's funny as hell.
While straddling him.
While semi-straddling him. It's but it's that's just more great comparison. Let's skip to the whole training stuff because we get not one of my favorite scenes, but to me, the brilliance of Robin Williams, and I wonder about this one. So after all the training's done, that's just amusing and fun. That's just fun. Aside from also Hooks, as Static put earlier, the gaslighting of Jack and Maggie. Maggie, who won't have any of it, but Jack is primed to be angry. So
because he was already mad at Dad.
Yeah, so it makes it very easy for that. And that, as I said earlier, I find that a great story within the story of a bad man pretending to be a good dad and saying all the things that makes him sound like a good dad. I won't break your promises, forget all that pain and suffering. You can be free here, all that kind of stuff. But then we get the training sequence, but then we get the feast. I love the feast. I love the feast. And one of the reasons I love the feast is that there's attention to detail once the feast is revealed.
Yes.
I mean,
I always was a little creeped out by the pie things.
Yeah.
I was like, what the hell is that?
It's pudding. It's like pie pudding. Of course, they're going to want their sweets, their kids. But I love the whole concept of it, that part of Peter Pan is playing games. And you play games to have a feast. And it becomes real because you use the imagination. And they're eating and stuff, and they're having fun doing it. And he can't quite do it until Rufio pushes his buttons. And in that moment, that exchange between Rufio and Peter, that's also pure Robin Williams right there. And I wonder, because we know Robin Williams is famous for ad-libbing, I wonder how much of that was ad-libbed on his side.
I imagine 90% of it.
Yeah. Like a substitute chemistry teacher, math tutor, nearsighted gynecologist.
That has Robin Williams written all over it.
I know, and it's great, and that's what makes it fun, because here comes the fun part of it, and then he's having fun, and then he gets into it. Rufio, if I'm a maggot burger, why don't you just eat me? Suffering from Peter Pan envy. Don't mess with me, man. I'm a lawyer. And then Rufio can't handle it, but then Peter tells him to suck on a dead dog's nose, and then he throws it. But then suddenly, because he's becoming himself again, he plays the game with the glorious feast. And I mentioned attention to detail. You see Thud's sandwich. They made sure to have the sandwich on the plate, and I like that. Every time, I appreciate that. They had Thud's sandwich, and I love it.
I didn't see the sandwich at first, right? Because they show a different angle where the sandwich is hidden by that block of cheese. So my thought every time is, he just took a big ass bite out of that block of cheese. That's immediately what I think every time. Like, that's fully within the character. I'm not surprised, but damn.
Did you notice the cheese says Thud on it?
Does it?
It says Thud on it. The cheese says Thud.
I think his face is on it too.
I know.
Is it really?
Yeah.
That's brilliant. I love it.
So but when you pull back, you see him pick up the sandwich and start to eat it, and I love that attention to detail. That is what is missing in so much modern cinema today. A little thing that ties the whole scene together. And then they're having fun, and then how appropriate to have a food fight. It's food fight, but then Rufio tries to be a dick. And he throws the coconut when Peter's standing up there. Hey, Pan the man, catch this. And then Peter, look out, toss him. And then, because it's just instinct and not thinking, spin slash, cuts it through the thing like only Peter Pan could do. And I love it. It's so cool. So cool. And then you go into the song, and you get the Thud and the memory thing, which, again, I think you're right. Thud is one of the most important characters in this, which is why Peter gives him the sword at the end. Because Peter understands that Thud, he's more than just the fat kid. He's got a kind heart, and he thinks of others, and he wants to do the right thing every time. And so,
Peter's got that great line: "Look after everyone smaller than you."
Yeah.
So, do you guys ever wonder why these Lost Boys don't fly?
I think that was probably a directorial choice, because they make it clear that pixie dust can wear off in this
right.
version.
But I mean, they have an unlimited supply.
Well, can Tink run out?
I don't know if Tink can run
juicer?
out.
We know it doesn't expire because of what's his face's marbles.
Well, there is a little bit of where the movie does lose a little points for him, because in the original lore, all the original core Lost Boys, along with Peter, Wendy, and John and Michael, they can all fly. They can continually fly. They don't stop. So they monkey with the lore a little bit about flying, and they don't make it clear why. And they could have used an explanation of it.
Because Rufio definitely makes a big deal of Peter being able to fly.
Yeah, and him not being able to fly. Yeah. So I think for the purpose of the movie, they just kind of gloss over it, and I think that's a mistake. I agree, that's a mistake. Which is it lose one of the few points I'll take off. You're absolutely right. And also, I always had the thought if Toodles can shake his marble back to fly, then Peter can just take Jack and go like this, shake him over his head.
What?
I would think about that. Well, that's the rule I just made up. There's pixie dust flight attached to his marble because it's his happy thought that if Jack is Peter's happy thought, just take it and shake him. I'm sorry, that's the logic I thought of as a kid when I saw that, okay? And it's always stuck with me. My little kid logic, just wait a minute.
My impression was he had pixie dust in the bag.
Yeah, the pixie dust was in the bag.
Yeah, it was just extra pixie. Yeah, I think it was just extra pixie dust he snuck in the bag.
And his happy thought was the marbles themselves. Like,
I did not get the impression that it was trying to tell me that your happy thought gives you pixie dust.
That was what my little kid brain told me, and I've held on to that thought my entire life. Okay,
that's hilarious.
Little kid thoughts, they do strange things. But that's really important, though, that Thud's explanation of the happy thoughts, and it puts Peter on the track. And then we get the baseball game, which, again, that's a brilliant scene. After the clock smashing thing where Hook completely, and pun intended, hooks Jack. In that moment, he hooks Jack, and Jack is buying into it. And they go to the baseball game, and it's just so many little things going on there. So you'll hook, then you'll crow like Pan. Jack getting to have the experience of people happy to watch him play baseball, have a successful moment, but then Peter seeing what he's missed. And it breaks him in that moment when Hook yells, "My Jack," after the home run. And I don't quite, I think I have quite the words go beyond that. It breaks him. And he's determined, but he doesn't know what to do at that point.
Well, he knows he has to fly.
That's about all he knows, but he doesn't know how because he can't get that happy thought.
Yeah, he has to beat Hook.
Yeah.
And that's all that matters now.
But he doesn't quite have the tool set, and then he's back at the treehouse. But then the baseball flies down. I think that I like that. One could say it doesn't make any sense. It's Neverland. It doesn't have to make sense. It's Neverland. That ball can go up and come down wherever it wants.
Yeah,
I know, Jed. I'm not just thinking coincidence. You son of a bitch. It's
I don't like that. I don't think it was necessary. But that baseball scene does illustrate another issue that I kind of had with the film. The film is wildly inconsistent on the effect Neverland has on somebody's mind. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it makes you forget your previous life. Sometimes it makes you forget about Neverland when you leave it. Sometimes it makes you susceptible. Like, it's just Neverland does whatever the plot wants it to on your brain. Never affects Wendy, though. Like, as an old lady, she has all her memories.
I think.
So Wendy, I can kind of explain. Now this is all headcanon, but for me, I kind of just saw it because she wasn't from Neverland and didn't spend years at a time there. Mm-hmm. So it never got to like fully enwrap itself into Wendy's thing.
I think also Wendy was always Wendy always had the mind of an adult because she was cast in the role of mom for all of them. Her mind was already that of a grown-up. So that's how she was able to hold on to things. I think, to your point, Jed, you're right. There is inconsistency. But I think, and I've questioned this because obviously you will grow to a certain point or stop growing. And I think it's my headcanon answer, because it's a headcanon answer. I have nothing else but headcanon answer. It's about a state of mind. If you're going to Neverland to escape things, you're going to forget things. If you're going there for the purpose of, finding something, you're going to find what you look for if you go there. And,
well, then what's Maggie's motivation then?
I mean, Wendy's?
No, the daughter.
Oh, Maggie. Well, she didn't have motivation. She wanted to go home. the whole time. She didn't want to go there.
She was a prisoner.
She
Yeah.
was a prisoner. So
right, but it just like Jack, I mean, none of them went there voluntarily, so I'm not sure if your motivation to go there.
Well, Jack wanted to escape from what he perceived. When I look at it, he wanted to escape what he perceived as the oppression of his father. And he was looking for. He wanted to escape, and he was looking for someone who would pay attention to him. And Hook provided that, and that's when then the memory thing takes effect. So that's how I see it.
Yeah, and Maggie wasn't willing to be a mental prisoner either, whereas Jack was definitely primed.
Yeah, much like his father. I mean, like father, like son. I mean, if Peter was susceptible because he wanted to do stuff, he escaped. Now, Peter remembered his mother, according to this version of the lore, up to a point, and then he forgot it when he didn't want to think about it anymore. Neverland provided that.
Yeah, and that's something that always kind of bothered me too. I was like,
the baby carriage running away.
Yeah. It's like,
they made it seem like it was his choice.
Yeah.
How did he do that?
Yeah. And like, really, we couldn't have just aged him up a little bit. He could have been 2 or 3. That would have made way more sense.
Because that's an infant. There's no thought there. There's no thought. None at all. And they get picked up by a pixie who's going to raise you to be her stud muffin.
Well, and then how does, like, you're in Neverland as an infant? How did you even become to look like you were 6 or 7 years old?
And there's the inconsistency. He wanted to go to a certain point, and then he kind of just stopped himself once he was capable. Because at that point, he's like, Peter, when he leaves, I would say that's a 13-year-old boy at that point.
I forgot to mention this earlier. There was another inconsistency that relates to this. Back when they were sharpening the hook in the beginning, there's a kid, a pirate kid, watching the hook get sharpened.
My guess, we know there are Lost Boy prisoners because we see them with Maggie. My bet, that's a Lost Boy prisoner. That's my bet.
I just figured it was something that it was a product of the whores.
I was gonna say there are whores.
Yes,
there are whores, and let's be honest. I mean, Hook obviously partakes of the whores because he's got Drusilla with glove meat.
Let's just say that it's probably good the whores are there. Otherwise, they'd be a little bit more motivated to find.
There's a lot of teenage lost boys that I'm a little concerned about.
Yeah. I mean, the one thing I'm pretty sure of though is that because they all kill each other, there ain't none of that going on. Because Pirates of Lost Boys, they're all just trying to kill each other at that point. So, there are a bunch of teenage Lost Boys in there. Some of the background Lost Boys are definitely 14 years old, maybe 15. Rufio's 14.
I saw them as like the Rufio fanboys, the older ones.
Yeah. There's a lot of thing is though, because there's nothing to look at. And I'm not going to go there. No, moving on. I'm not going to go there. I'm not going this road. Let's move on. This is a wholesome movie. Let's move on. Yes, there are whores, but it's a wholesome movie. Let's not have this discussion anymore. Peter's remembering though, since we're on that there. I love the fact that that's where they decided to bring in the shadow finally in that moment. And I like it that at this point, because it's his shadow that, of course, by lore has been sewn back onto him by Wendy originally. It's not an antagonistic feature, but an ally to try and guide him those last few steps to the original treehouse. The original treehouse where the original core group would hang out all the time. And it's the spark of his memories, and he has those thoughts. And even though I know it's twisting of the lore a little bit, I do like the flashback sequence. I like it because it just takes us through Peter's mental journey. And it gives us the answer that's very important. Why did Peter leave Neverland? One, not to just steal a kiss from a sleeping girl, which is a little sketchy. Sketchy. It's very sketchy right there. If I was more, you wake up, sometimes slap his ass. But because he wanted to have a family, he wanted to be a dad. And there we are. That's the full circle moment. And you realize that this is a good dad movie because he wanted to be a good father. He wanted to have a family. He wanted to experience that adventure. And that his transformation into I'll use Static's term, an absent dad, not a bad dad, but an absent dad, was just a byproduct of, let's just say, his Swiss cheese memory from at least 100+ years in Neverland, because that story starts in like the 1700s. Late 1700s, early 1800s. So Peter was in Neverland for well over 100 years.
Mm-hmm. Which also creates a problem with, I know they aged up Maggie Smith, but Wendy should be well over 100. because the book came out in 1911, which is canonically in the movie. The book did come out in this world, so it would have been at least 1900 when she was kidnapped, and that was 91 years before.
She even mentioned that when she was going over the book with Maggie before they went to the event, and she was talking about how the guy got the stories from them 80 years ago.
Yeah, he's just old. She's just old.
She's got to be a lot older.
She's just old.
Well over 100.
Yeah, she's like in her
Yeah, hey, you know what? Great. I don't mind it. Hey, dude, she got a lot of that. She got a little bit of that Neverland magic in her, man. She spent time there. Now, of course, from the last time to when Peter came back, obviously because Peter loses track of time, he didn't realize another 40 years had passed. 50 years had passed between the last time he saw her when she was still going with Paltrow. But I think it's still really, even though a little sketchy with the stolen kiss, I think it's a nice thing to see, and it's a good message. Be a dad. Be a dad. Be a good dad. And realize not to forget what you have in front of you, which is what he had forgotten. He had forgotten everything that was important to him, which is kind of one of the themes of the movie. Peter forgets things until they're either gone or taken from him. And I think that that's part of the whole journey of this Peter Pan story, is remembering to cherish what you have. Because Toodles' last line in the movie, seize the day. Seize the day. But then remember what you have. Don't forget what's important to you. Don't let it slip away. Hold on to it tight. And Peter finally remembers everything, and he's able to put it on its right place. He won't forget it at the end of the movie. But anyway, we need to speed along here because we're already over an hour. So Peter gets memory back in a glorious thing. I love the return scene. Full on John Williams music flying around. Yes, it's a slow fly. It's not high speed flying, but I'm okay with it. And then I like the callbacks to the torture moment. Play, throwing the basketball at their heads, doing all this stuff.
Yeah.
And this is my my last super favorite scene. I still love the rest of the movie. This is my last favorite scene of when after Rufio sees what's going on, he goes to get the Pan sword, and after Peter has got everybody there, everything draws to a stop. And great direction by Steven Spielberg. You see Robin Williams land, and all you see are his legs right there, and you see Rufio.
Yeah,
and Rufio just drops to his knees. You are the Pan. Peter takes the sword, perfect symmetry, draws the line, no hesitation. Everybody behind him. You can fight, you can fly, and then they just start crowing. And I love that moment when he just does the bow. He's got Peter Pan hair, he's got the elephant ears again. He just goes, I love that. Just something about that. The music is playing, and then the celebration of Peter Pan and his lost boys. I love that moment. And that's where I would love to stop the movie right here and give me another half an hour of Peter Pan and the Lost Boys doing adventurous shit. I want more adventure. That's where I just want them doing crazy Neverland adventure shit, because I want to see that, because it would be fun, because right there moment I can feel the exuberance of everybody. They're happy. They're reunited. They got their Pan back. They're ready to have a good time. Love it.
That would have made more sense, because the next part is when Tinkerbell's all like, well, you remember why you're here, right?
And he's lost his memory again.
Yeah.
And I think, and I know Judge is saying inconsistency, I think that's the default setting. He reset to default in that moment by celebrating, and Neverland took a hold again. But then Tink snapped him out of it. And because she was always in love with him. And that's a standby. That's a standby of all the Peter Pan lore. Tinkerbell was always in love with Peter. So then we got the war. We talked about it earlier, mentioned it. I love the rustic nature of the Lost Boy gear set. I do like it. The helmets are cheesy. I don't like the helmets. I don't like helmets on anything. That's a thing for me. I love the whole setup, though. I love that Peter has a plan. I love how well choreographed it all is. I mean, we're not talking super choreography, but everybody hit their marks for the battle to the Jolly Roger. And it's fun. It's pure fun watching Peter fly in, watching him reach out to Jack again, and then the back and forth. I mean, let's be honest. Robin Williams and Dustin Hoffman, they only have 2 scenes together. The arrival in the Jolly Roger and the final battle.
It's true.
That's it. And both times are brilliant exchanges.
And while that whole battle is happening, they're also intertwining more of those emotionally connected moments with Peter and his kids, and like my dad's Peter Pan, like and then you're watching Jack go through the process of regaining his memory,
and he's looking at his clothes. What am I wearing?
When Rufio is killed by Hook, and Rufio is all, "I wish I had a dad like you," and then Jack's like, "Oh shit, that is my dad."
And and how could and I've always felt it a strange line, "Dad, I'm sorry," but I think I think he says I'm sorry for not understanding. I'm not exactly sure why he's all these years later. I'm still not exactly sure why Jack says I'm sorry for forgetting.
Well, it could be perceived as a betrayal almost to fall in, even though that's not necessarily true. You have a lot of emotion, so I can see what he's apologizing for. Just like, I was taken in, I rejected you as my father, and I didn't understand that you were always, you always cared.
Yeah,
did always
literally
care.
dressed like Mini Hook. I mean,
yeah.
You have a bit to apologize for if you're cosplaying as your dad's arch enemy.
Yeah, but that whole thing, and you mentioned when, and here's what I love about this: when Rufio has his badass entrance after all the combination Lost Boys fighting, Rufio fights his way to the ship, goes Hook, and Hook's going Rufio, but then Peter comes and says, "No, the old man's mine." But then what happens? Peter hears Maggie scream, "Help me, Jack," and boom, dad mode. He goes into full dad mode. Oh, wait, shit, my kid. And he just flies off to save Maggie. And I love that moment too, because that's dad mode. I hear my little girl's in trouble. Oh, fuck you. You get your hands off my little girl, I'm going to kick your ass. And what I do... Go ahead.
With that sequence, we get the pirate who's like, "Wait, you're Peter Pan?"
Yeah,
and jumps out the window. I love that moment.
Yeah, and I do appreciate during all of this, and I know some might say, "Oh, Adam, how are you saying this? This is a movie supposed to be for kids." No, this is a movie for everybody, because they show Peter killing people. He kills pirates. He's stabbing them, gutting Rufio, ganks somebody.
Yeah,
I mean, across. But I love that moment. After that, Peter flies off, saves Maggie. Maggie's "Daddy!" And she's so happy. "I'll never lose you again." But then Hook going, Rufio, knowing exactly what to do to goad Rufio into that fight. And Hook,
they've been fighting for, what, 30 years on their own? 20 years
30,
on their own?
Probably at least 30, 40 years, I would say. Since I mean, Robin Williams, we know that Peter arrived in the 60s. You could tell by the posters in Moira's room.
Okay.
In the flashback, Peter arrived in the 60s. He's already 13 years old, so he's like late 40s, maybe early 50s at this point. So if Rufio came after, because I still maintain Rufio was a Lost Boy that arrived after Peter. Tink picked him up at one way or another. He's probably been the one dealing with Hook for the past 30, 40 years, maybe, at least.
There's definitely a history there that we're not privy to.
Looky, I got hooky.
So if this movie came out today, they'd make some twist where Rufio was Hook's son or something like that.
Yeah, they'd be retarded like that. Yeah.
If they remake, they do anything with
Dude,
this, I am going to build the studio in Minecraft. And
they keep trying to make Peter Pan movies, though.
They fail. Every Peter Pan reboot they've done, live action, whether it's the crap miniseries they put on Sci-Fi Channel like 10, 15 years ago, was terrible. Even though Rhys Ifans was interesting as Hook, it was a terrible miniseries.
The Peter Pan and Wendy on Disney Plus a couple of years ago.
Oh, dude, that was just like last year, wasn't it?
That was only a year or so ago. Yeah, that was
even before that, the Hugh Jackman one where he played Hook. That one was awful.
It has failed every time. And my response to a Peter Pan show has always been, don't try to make a movie, make a show of the adventures in Neverland. Don't try to don't redo the origin story. Don't retell the shit of the book. Do it that cartoon I mentioned that was on Fox Kids around this time. Show me Adventures in Neverland.
Status quo. We don't need Wendy, Michael, or John.
Yeah, we don't need them there all the time. They could come and go. Show me Peter and the Lost Boys having adventures in Neverland. That would be easy, be fun. But then, and Static already mentioned before, we focus that by then the battle is won. The Lost Boys have won. Their tactics have won. They've beaten the pirates. They're all surrendering. But Hook and Rufio are still going at it on the bow of the Jolly Roger, and Rufio's death. I didn't see it coming the first time I saw this. I wasn't prepared for that. And it's a harsh one too, because I caught it later. They leave the blood on this on Hook's foil. Because if you notice when Peter has him beat and he gives him his sword back so they keep fighting, you could still see the blood on the blade. It's still there. So there was attention to detail that's Rufio's blood still on the sword while they're fighting.
And in kids' movies, they never would have done that.
Nope. So it's a hardcore thing, and like you said, that moment, I wish I had a dad like you. That's powerful, man. That's powerful.
Especially after like hating him for the last 3 days.
Yeah,
it's so funny to say.
But that's the Neverland thing,
right?
Because once he was Peter, he was then Peter, and Rufio. It wasn't hatred; it was jealousy, is what it was. That he'd been living in the shadow of Peter Pan his entire time there, but he never even met Peter. And here he is, and Peter was forgiving, and they just wanted to be friends. And it's great. I would have liked to have seen more Rufio Peter dynamic. That's why I say their celebration. I want to see more of their adventures. I want to see more of that. But they get Rufio dies, and Peter is ready to go right then and there. But then Jack says, "Dad, I want to go home." And that's enough to say, "Oh, okay, I just want to go home." But then, of course, Hook goads him. There'll be daggers and letters strewn on the doors of your children's children. And then Pan the Avenger is back. And we have a very simple choreographed fight, where it's not Dustin Hoffman, but they can get away with it because they can put the wig and the makeup and the hat on. You can't tell. But that's Robin Williams. Robin Williams did solid choreography there. He hit the marks, and it doesn't look too fake. As somebody who's a fencer, it holds up as just the basics. It's all basics, nothing fancy, but it holds it. And because of the John Williams score, you're swept up into it. You're like, yeah, I'm all loving this. And the banter back and forth when they're talking, you're not really Peter Pan. You're Peter Banning. You're an alcoholic. You run away from your wife and kids. And then everybody's saying, "I believe in you." And then that gives him the strength. And then they lead him into the trap with the croc and the clocks.
The clock's a good touch.
And that's what I love when Peter says, "I have a plan." That's the plan. Sucker Hook into the trap and freak him out with the clocks. And I thought that's brilliant. I love that. Hello. Tick tock, Hook's afraid of old Dick Croc. Seems James Hook's afraid to die. And that's brilliant Robin Williams. That's brilliant Dustin Hoffman. And what I love right back at the end, they had teased it the whole movie that Hook is obviously wearing a wig. They teased it since the beginning. We knew it was a wig. But to have him flip it off and show him for the old man.
Weak and frail. Yeah.
Yeah. That's a really good point right there. And I think it's an appropriate line. "You took my hand. You owe me something. Can I have my dignity, please?" And then Peter's about to gank him. But then the famous Maggie line, "He's just a mean old man without a mommy." My mom loves that line in this movie. She loves that
really?
line. Of course she does. "You're just a mean old man without a mommy. You need a mother very, very badly." She loves that line. But
you call moms like those lines.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But I think then at the last moment there, and I want your opinion on this, it drives it home. Hook is the villain. Peter turns his back, dagger out of the sleeve, tries to gank him on one last desperate attack.
Yep.
And I Static, that's a villain. It's a villain.
Yeah, there's no redeeming qualities, and he leans like, I don't think Hook has any sort of like, he's not like Thanos, right? Where Thanos thought he was the good guy, right? And we get all this stuff where these bad guys think they're the good guys. I think Hook knew he was the villain in this.
Oh yeah.
They even talk about it, yeah.
Yeah, that even when Tinkerbell does the thing to his nose, they're like the great hero versus the villain war, blah blah blah.
Or there's a better line when he's about to pierce Jack's ear, and he talks about the earrings, and then when the fighting begins, he says, once you run somebody through, once you kill men, there's nothing like it. It's a pirate's life. He's evil. There's nothing redeeming. I mean, Jed, that's a great moment when he just lunges at him with the dagger, and Peter is caught off guard because he was being human, but Hook's evil.
Well, he was showing honor for honor. He was expecting honor from Hook after giving him the honor of his wig. He just expected that it would be a moral equivalency. Mm-hmm. You can't ask for honor and then fail to show it yourself. That's a depraved thing to do. And obviously Hook has no problems doing that for his own advantage.
Yeah. The whole good form stuff, it's just until it's not useful anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And I love it how Peter, he's done, but Peter knows he's not alone, and he glances, and then I love it that Tink swoops in and deflects the blade, and deflects the hook, because that's Hook's downfall right there. If Hook had just taken the shot with the dagger, but no, he wants to kill Peter with his hook. He wants to do it with the hook, and he wants to make a dramatic fashion. Thus perished Peter Pan. And he raised the hook, and there's a great shot there. Oh no, I'm sorry. That's shot from earlier where Peter's facing the hook. Sorry, it's shot from earlier. But it's a great shot. But then Tink swoops in, deflects it, and Peter just goes boop and thrusts the hook into the croc. And even though I said earlier I still want the croc to be there, I think it's a good moment that the spirit of TikTok, the crocodile, is still in there. And it wants that last meal.
Doesn't it even look down before it falls?
Yeah, it looks. Yeah. You can see the green mist comes out. He comes back to life for that last second, and Hook is just stunned. You don't know what's going on, and he stumbles back. I love Jack's smile as he looks up because of the whole clock incident from earlier, and you're right. The brace breaks, and the croc looks down, and Hook goes, "I want my mommy." Just comes down, and then he's gone. The croc burps, which means this. I think the ghost ate it. Is what happened. Ghost ate him. That has to be it.
It doesn't make any sense.
I like the idea of a Hook, landing in the mouth, and he's like, "Oh shit, what am I gonna do?" And then he just crawls into the stomach and pretends to be dead.
Hook 2.
Hook 2, yeah. No, I'm pretty sure that thought crossed my mind as a kid because I definitely wanted another one.
Well,
I think it would have made more sense if he'd just been crushed by the croc. I think that would have worked a lot better. I find it a little too cheesy, honestly, his death.
Oh, it's cheesy. It's cheesy, but I accept it. I completely accept it. And the croc burps. No more Hook. No more Hook. For a second, Peter is once again drawn back into being Peter, where they're just dancing and celebrating. But then Jack and Maggie are like, we're standing here still. We want to go home.
We want to go see Mom. Yeah.
We're done here. We've had enough. We're not you. This is not our life. I want to go home. And then we talked about it, the emotional scene, handing over. And then this final moment when they're back in London. And I appreciate this last moment where the janitor, not janitor, but the trash man. It's Bob Hoskins.
Yeah.
Oh, I hate that.
Well, that's a callback. That's a callback to original lore where Wendy's father looks like Hook. That's a callback to what they've done in the past. So that's just a shout out to old school Peter Pan filming, where
there's implications for that, and people have actually came to this conclusion that it means that it was all a dream, that nothing we saw in Hook was real. We saw 5 minutes later everyone reacting to Toodles flying away, so it's obviously still real, but people get that interpretation because Bob Hoskins is there, and I don't think it's as well done as the Hook looking like Wendy's dad, or even I think another great example is Jumanji, the hunter looking like Robin Williams' dad in that film. I think that's done a lot more subtly and more interestingly, but this one, it just comes out of nowhere, and it's so blatant that it's confusing, and you try to see It's too out there. Like if it had just been in the background or something subtle that you'd have to go out of your way to notice, I think that would have worked really well, just like with Wendy's dad. But in this case, you see that and you're like, all right, there's some interpretation here. There's something that this is revealing. I've got to figure this out.
But it
like,
isn't.
So
yeah,
I just
creates questions that don't have answers.
Yeah. I just thought it was the scary man who stole the baseball from the beginning, the scary window washer.
No, that was actually Hook. Because like I told you in the video game, they show the Jolly Roger coming to kidnap them. That was actually them taking it.
Right,
did take
like
baseball. Because I don't even
why
think
did
Hook
they do
has
the
the
whole
baseball.
green smoke thing and everything later? Why didn't they just? I don't know.
Yeah, why'd they wait?
How were they already in the house? They took the baseball and then they left.
Well,
And,
remember,
they came in through the balcony, then they went down the stairs.
Listen, here's the thing: clearly they were making trips to the real world because they had all that information that Hook was using during the school lesson scene. They'd been doing recon for a while before they get in there. So
they had to find the window.
Yeah. So my point is this, though. That is just a nod. That's simply a nod to the old school same actor thing. That's all that is. Now, people thinking into it, there's nothing more to it than that. It's a simple nod to tradition of Peter Pan storytelling. That's all that is. But then here's what I call the bittersweet moment when Tink comes down to land on the Peter Pan statue. That's like the real Peter Pan statue in that they're representing there, that exists in London there. And she comes down, and that's sad because that's essentially the end of Tinkerbell. Because she says, you know, that place between awakened dreams, that's where I'll be waiting for you. So she basically goes to another place to wait until Peter moves on to like the next life or something, and his spirit will be there and reunites. It's very sad that Tink has to basically have that unrequited love because Peter rejected her during the humongous scene. I love Mora. Just like he rejected Tinkerbell for Wendy originally. And that's sad to me. It's a little bittersweet in that moment, and it gets me because I feel bad for Tinkerbell because I like Tinkerbell better than Wendy and Mora. I like her better.
For real though.
Something that I used to think about as a kid was the kids go missing, and just a few hours, Peter goes missing. What the hell's going on in Moira's head? After that happens,
she doesn't even react.
We don't know. They didn't take time with that. Now Wendy, she knows what went on, and Toodles, because remember Toodles watches them leave. So Wendy, my guess is all I can say is that I think Wendy must have explained everything to Mora, or at least something.
And she believed her.
I don't know.
I want to see what the conversation with the cops are because they did involve the cops, and if the kids just show up and there's no real explanation, they can get in trouble for filing a false police report.
Well, and they already think Toodles has dementia.
Yeah,
which is my excuse for Toodles remembering is because like he got dementia and that like unlocked the things from his past or whatever. But like if you're Moira, then all of a sudden your grandma's saying, "Yeah, I am actually Wendy. Your husband's the Peter Pan." Like she's just like, "Oh, now my family's gone, and the ones that are here have lost their minds."
Yeah,
she just accepts everything at the end of the movie.
Listen, you guys are right, and these are the small criticisms. This is why I have to dock some points because there are missing narrative parts to this, explaining certain things. And
Moira being a character is missing.
Mora, yeah, you're right. Listen, I've never liked Mora as a character. I thought it's a necessary part of the whole story, but
she's just a conduit to set up that he needs to pay more attention to his kids.
Yeah.
I think it's just they needed a woman to make the kids for him. That's more what she did.
God, you just want them all barefoot and naked making sandwiches in the kitchen, don't you?
I mean, is he wrong though?
Listen,
where'd he go?
listen. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, when it comes to thinking like this, my happy thought is around women. This type of thing, you know. I have two happy thoughts every time. Those are my happy thoughts. So maybe that's why he had happy thoughts. I don't know. Okay, we're getting off this line of discussion.
Oh yeah, what the hell?
I never want to know when you're flying, Adam.
All right. So jokes aside, then we had happy ending. Toodles is going to go back to Neverland. To live is the greatest adventure. A family reunited, and clearly, happily ever after, which is fine.
The sequel I want is Toodles goes and takes over Pirate Village and becomes the new Pirate King. Obviously, still aligned with the Lost Boys, not villains or anything, and just the shenanigans Toodles pirates would.
Toodles goes back, becomes a badass in Neverland, starts to regenerate, grow younger.
That would have been awesome.
I mean, if you can go from a baby to being grown up to the point where you want to be, I imagine how old you want to be plays a part in Neverland. So he could be like, hey, I want to be a little boy again, and ages down.
Yeah.
I could buy that.
Neverland is weird, but that's the fun of it. Now, here we are. One of my favorite parts of this. I just got to reiterate. This, in my opinion, is an underrated score from John Williams. People don't talk about this score enough. It is literally magical. And every scene is perfectly crafted to his piece, where he crafts every track to every scene perfectly. I feel the emotion of all that. I feel the adventure every time. That hook theme is still, I've been whistling it all week. I've been whistling this all week, man. I love it. And even when I'm walking, I'll go like this when for that part where he leaves his cabin. And they're going, hook, I'll do this because I've done it all my life when I get caught up in it. I love it. This is. I mean, it's always the conversation. It's always which John Williams track is going to be the best of all time, because it's always going to be John Williams with John Williams. This is one that doesn't get talked about enough because it hits every mark. There's not a missed beat in it. There never is in a John Williams track, but it's a beautiful, beautiful score. And it elevates everything, which is why I'm part of the reason I'm going to give the score I'm going to give it today. Because the music, even though I take off my points, it locks it in every time. Every time. All right, we're at the end now, so final thoughts. Static, you're our guest, so you can go first.
I love this movie. There's things that make you scratch your head. Like one of the things I remember from a kid was when all of a sudden he learned to fly. And he's just in the giant green Peter Pan suit. I'm like, what? Did Tinkerbell just have that waiting for him? What?
When he flew up through the treehouse, it was waiting, and he just went like right up into it. Woo.
But like, where'd they get his measurements from? I mean,
he's fat now. They made a point of it.
Well, he lost weight. And he got his Elvis back. He lost weight. He literally transformed throughout the movie. And Hook even makes a joke. So I can see you still fit into those smashing tights.
Yeah.
They're self-aware. They're completely self-aware when they say that. So
do you think he was wearing some sort of, because like when you see him sitting on the plane, he's got a belly, right?
Yeah.
So do you think they've got him wearing something?
I think they added, in the original slingshot where they are painting him and firing him off, he looks fat there. I think. Yeah. True. I think a little bit of practical effects. I think
they must have done something, because Robin Williams is one of the hairiest men of his era. Yes. So where did it all go in that scene?
Yeah,
this is true. He shaved his chest.
I'd rather think he was wearing a prosthetic than they had to wax him.
And I think they had things, because when he's talking to Thud, his face looks significantly thinner when he's having his conversation with Thud about happy thoughts. So I think it's a logical progression of, as he's becoming Peter, he's magically transforming, and I'm okay with that.
He could have easily lost 20 pounds while shooting this. Like,
oh yeah, because probably a 4 month period, 4 month period when they shot this, but yeah. Jed, final thoughts.
Well, this film is so much fun. I think that's the beauty of it, is you can't help but smile through this film. It's a happy place film. And just like you said, Adam, this isn't necessarily a kid's movie. It is a film for everyone. I don't need to go to a childish pace to enjoy it. There's plenty that is heartfelt and timeless about this film that make it the best Peter Pan product.
Yep.
I even like the original book, even the original animated film, I think this is the best Peter Pan material out there. And I absolutely love this film, with the music, the superb acting, that I can't think of a a better pirate film, a better film with just these simple messages that it's gonna stand the test of time. I think
it has.
It's gonna be put up there as one of Spielberg's best someday. I think
it's been 40 years, man. 91
Damn,
to
shut
01,
up.
91 to 01, 01 to 11. Okay, it's been 30 years. Sorry,
it's just over 30 years. Yeah,
not that old. Jesus,
I feel old too. Shut up. All right. Still, it has stood the test of time. It because it's reached beloved status, and unless you just either don't care about it, I rarely hear negative talk about this movie. And when Robin Williams passed, before we understood what happened to him, that he was not himself anymore, that it was a literal disease in his brain that made him do it, that he didn't actually do a selfish act on purpose. He couldn't stop himself. I wasn't sure I could ever watch a Robin Williams movie again and not feel depressed and thinking, how could you do this? And I was for a moment sad that I don't know if I can ever watch Hook again. That'll be sad if I can't. But when we learned that he was sick and it was out of his control, he wasn't himself anymore, I was able to put everything in place and realize, okay, I can watch Robin Williams movies again. I can enjoy them because I can cherish what he gave us. And this is, I'll say it again, along with the score being an underrated John Williams score, this is an underrated Robin Williams performance because he doesn't do anything special in this. He is just fun. And he's a perfect adult Peter Pan, like I said at the start of the stream. And that's why I love this movie. And like Jed said, it's fun. I am never disappointed when I see this movie. I walk away with a smile on my face, whistling the music for a few days afterwards until something else distracts me and I move on. And that's why I own it. I need to upgrade it. I need to get the Blu-ray. My DVD one, it looks like shit. I need a better copy. Anyway, so it is my month, but Static is our guest, so you get to score it first out of 10, Static.
I give it a 9.5.
9.5. I respect that. That's legitimate. It's my week, so I get to go next. I give it a 9. Straight 9. I took my points off for what I've already said. My personal subjective desire for the crocodile, but we've talked about narrative holes, this and that, add a couple little things here and there, but it's not a lot. This is nitpicking, but objectively, it's just a all around great movie. Jed, here we go. Subjectivity aside.
Yeah, absolutely love this film. There's so much charm to it, but I think those flaws are substantial. A lot of the world building falls short. Some stuff just doesn't make sense. It needs more clarification. And it's a simple movie that it needed a little bit more work, I think, in the script department. I have to give this a 7. I'm wrestling between a 6.5 and a 7.
No, 7 is fine. I was afraid you were going to say 5 for a second. I was going to
Oh God, no. There are some genuine pieces of great filmmaking here. A lot of subtlety that it could never be a 5.
I accept your 7. I understand you at this point. It's okay. It's all right. I forgive you.
You're happy with the 7 when it comes.
I'm happy with the 7. Anyway, there we go. Another one in the books. Jed, what you got for us next week?
Well, I've been in the mood for a little Tommy Lee Jones. It's been a long time since I've seen a Tommy Lee Jones film. Have we ever talked about a Tommy Lee Jones film?
We've never done a Tommy Lee Jones movie. He has not been in anything. He has not been in any movie we've done yet. No, he has not.
Well, and what Tommy Lee Jones film could you do that's better than when he starred across from Harrison Ford?
I knew that's where you were going. I got it right there. It's on my shelf. The Fugitive. Hell yeah. I don't care. That's where Harrison Ford got it. I don't care. He got it from Tommy Lee Jones. Hell yeah. All right. Next Fugitive. Now, before we go, I want to remind everybody it is the first quarter of 2025. You know what that means, Jed?
Worry.
Fan choice. Chat choice. Okay, guys, you've got 3 weeks starting tonight. Either in comments, not now because we're ending the stream because I won't get all the chat. In comments and chats on my streams for the next 3 weeks, you guys can submit your suggestions for fan choice movie. We'll do it the first weekend in February. We will, as last time, you guys have this. We have 3 weeks to give it to it. I will collect them. I will give them to a third party who has not cast a vote, who has not had a suggestion, and they will choose it. Jed and I have no control whatsoever. And then once they have the 5 selected, we'll put it up for a poll like we did last time, and you get to vote on it then out of the 5. And whichever one wins, we watch it. Remember the rules. What were the rules? Shit. I should have brought the rules back up.
No porn.
No porn.
That's the main rule.
No porn. It has to be YouTube friendly to discuss. It has to be something Jed and I can easily get our hands on in one way, shape, or form. Well, listen, I don't want to get the channel destroyed. My channel has enough problems as it is, okay? Don't need that. So it has to be something Jen and I can easily get our hands on. Nothing animated for the time being. All right, so we don't want to range into that quite yet. And other than that, there were a couple of the rules. I'll dig it up. I posted them somewhere. I think I have it somewhere. I think it's somewhere in the community tab. I'll go back or end of last year when we did it. I think so. I'll repost it. So you guys, I'll make a fresh community tab post. So you guys can have it. But yeah, you know what? You said that last time. All right. You said that last time. All right. No. Anyway, so it's your choice. You guys got 3 weeks starting now. Best time to do it right now is leave a comment in today's stream. Even though I'm gonna, and now here's another thing. I'm saying this now. We're doing an experiment with the channel right now. I will be unlisting streams temporarily for this month. I'm going to see if it changes anything because people are saying that YouTube lied to us, that leaving streams up is still hurting us. We're doing an experiment with this. So for this month, I'll leave this up for the rest of the night like I normally do, but tomorrow this will be unlisted. But you can always still find every show on the playlist in the playlist section on my channel or on Jed's channel because we share this show. You can still find it there, but you can still leave a comment. I will still see it. You can leave comments in other streams. I'll be making the community tab posts. You can leave your suggestions there. Or in chat during other streams. I'll mention in other streams like tomorrow during Roundtable. I'll mention it. You guys can suggest it there. I'll catalog it. But so just so you know, but that if you are watching on the replay, if you are going to watch on the replay for the next month, that's where you're going to find most streams. Playlist it, this and that. We'll see how it goes. If things change, I'm going to suggest something new as terms of it, but not cataloging, basically saving streams. Discuss for later. I'm rambling. We're done. Thank you, everybody. Look, don't smile at me like that. Thank you, everybody, for being here. We appreciate you guys. We thank each and every one of you. You guys, and I see you, Kale, there. I don't tell me that later. We thank every one of you. We can't do this without you guys. We don't get to do this without your help and support. So we thank each and every one of you. We'll see you guys next time. Until then, everybody, take it easy. Have a good night. Be safe out there.